Welcome, it's 10:30. Welcome everybody to the 38th meeting of the Cass Clay Food Commission. First on the agenda is to approve the order and contents of the overall agenda. This is an action item. So is there a motion to approve?
Motion to
Deb White.
approve.
I'll second Deb White.
Okay, and there's a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same.
Who made the motion on that? I'm sorry.
Ben, did you make it?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeremiah made the
Thank
motion.
you.
I'll be better about that.
Okay, motion passed. Next on the agenda are the meeting minutes from January 12th. Hopefully you all have time to take a look at these. This is also another action item. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve Deb White.
Is there a second?
Breitling, seconds.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passed. Next on the agenda are commission introductions. This is slightly different from our usual check-in, but we thought we would like to take a minute for everyone to introduce themselves. Commission members, would you like to go around and introduce yourself first? Go ahead.
I'm Jeremiah Utek. I represent entrepreneurial interests on the commission.
I'm Deb
I'm,
White, here from City of Morehead, City Council.
Dwayne Breitling, Cass County Commission.
I'm Joan
Mandy
Copper.
George, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Mandy George, West Fargo Commission.
I'm Joan Copper at large.
I'm Anna Johnson at large.
Arlette Preston, City of Fargo.
My name is Jeffrey Miller, Cass County Soil Conservation District.
Jenna Cayley. Jenna Cayley, Clay County Commissioner.
So I'm going to choose a different time.
Steering the committee members, would you introduce yourselves? Go ahead.
I'm Rory Beal with Clay County Public Health.
Morning, I'm Noelle Harden with the University of Minnesota Extension, and I co-chair the steering committee.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mary Larson, and I'm a faculty member at North Dakota State University in the Department of Public Health.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Draxton with Fargo Cass Public Health and also co-chair the steering committee with Noelle.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Erica Frank from Clay County Planning and Zoning.
Hello, I'm Janice Tweet with the Great Plains Food Bank.
I'm Adam Waltenberg with the Fargo Morehead Metropolitan Council of Governments.
Is there anyone else in the meeting that would like to introduce themselves?
I'm Crystal Rayamaji. I am the new City of Morehead Sustainability Coordinator.
Next on our agenda is item 3, at-large commissioner spotlight. In the past, we have highlighted one of our jurisdiction commissioner members to talk about what is going on in our community. Today, we would like to highlight one of the at-large members. So with that, I would like to hand over to Jeremiah.
Hey, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm Jeremiah Utek. I'm specifically on the commission to represent entrepreneurial interests, and this is my last term, so I thought I was asked to present. And so I have a few things. I own Off the Deck Hot Sauce. It is a fermented hot sauce business that exclusively uses chili peppers grown here in the Red River Valley. We're partnered with a number of farms to do so. And I also own, because apparently that's not hard enough, I also own Flannel Fizz Craft Soda Pop. So if you think of Fargo Brewing as craft beer compared to Budweiser, we're craft soda compared to like Coke and Pepsi. It's a challenging business because pop is not healthy. So we took a lot of what we learned from the hot sauce and applied it to the soda. So we do whole food soda. So we use real food, real ingredients. By doing that, we can actually use quite a bit less sugar. And then we've also been digging into and exploring alternative products that stay within our ethos and our core values that could be more beneficial. Really, when it comes down to it, when we got started, we made early on, we decided that quality was the greatest investment we could make in ourselves as we got started. So we really dug deep into how to just make everything what we do better. And that's how we landed on locally grown chili peppers. Red River Valley is not a world-renowned hotspot for habanero growing or jalapeno growing. But pepper plants, by their nature, are what are considered indeterminate. Means they'll keep producing peppers for as long as the growing conditions are good. And that's great if you live in the Southwest. However, that soil's been growing chili peppers for generations, and we haven't been growing them here at all. So when we started buying local peppers, we noticed that they tasted significantly better. And so we made the call 3 years ago to go exclusive to local. As somebody who never wanted to worry about the weather or farming, I now worry about the weather a lot, and I talk to farmers a lot and stress about the weather with them. Through all of this, we can't do this by ourselves. So we have a couple of employees, and we quickly learned that investing in our employees really is a way to invest in our own quality. And through just existing and learning with our employees, food security issues and things like that kind of just became really forefront for us. And then last but not least, and this is just this, and just keep in mind when I'm talking about what we do, it's not a judgment on what anybody else does. This is just, we work really, really hard. And so we want to do things our way. So a big part of that is we use as few chemicals. And I understand anybody who has knowledge of chemistry or in this meeting will say everything's made of chemicals. And I absolutely agree. But what I'm talking about is we don't add any more to our products than we absolutely have to. The nice thing about making fermented hot sauce is we don't have to use a chemical food preservative compound. Lactobacillus, the little critter we use to ferment our stuff, produces an abundant amount of lactic acid, and it's very aggressive about protecting its environment against other microbes. And so it was really awesome to make a product that's shelf stable for years, with nature providing everything we needed to do that. We got started at the Red River Market, and that's where we started both of our businesses, actually. And it's pretty great in terms of you get to talk to your actual customers, huge amounts of community engagement. And as we've grown and moved into wholesale, we've stayed with the farmers markets for that reason. As I've been involved in this council, another reason started to come up, and that is Folkways, who runs the Red River Market, has a really strong SNAP engagement program where basically you can double your SNAP benefits if you come to the market. And we move actually quite a bit of hot sauce to SNAP benefit holders. Technically, I can sell our soda as long as it's, to take home. with SNAP benefits, but we don't actually, just on the health side of things and limited resources, we try to be maybe a little more judicious with that. The thing that, and it's kind of one of those hidden menu things, on the hot sauce side, we have a policy where if somebody doesn't have enough SNAP benefits to pick up a bottle of hot sauce, we basically cover the difference ourselves. So nobody, my wife, I grew up in a very food secure environment because I grew up in a military family, and so we had access to all that, but my wife did not. And so my wife and I talk a lot about when she was on, had to get food from food banks, and when she was on what would have been the food stamps back then. And seasoning and flavoring becomes a really big deal when your menu gets shrunk. And so that's a core thing. A program that we tried to start and we just organizationally weren't ready is we do intend to routinely and regularly donate hot sauce into the food bank system here in North Dakota and Minnesota for that reason. It's shelf stable. It's amazing. You know, a little bit of hot sauce can go a long way to making things taste at least different and less monotonous. But you know, we're in business, and so that does mean we have to worry about things like revenue and profitability, and so it's, you know, we're constantly balancing all of those aspects. Being part of this commission and being a food business owner, I was just unaware. It wasn't that I wasn't interested, and it wasn't that I didn't care. But you know, when you're worrying about state paperwork and selling at events and making products, it's a lot of noise. And so it's really hard to know where you want to put things. The SNAP benefits was a thing that we started doing, but well before I was on this commission. And that's just because it was right in front of our face. And it was easy to engage and do. The thinking about zooming out from my own personal stuff, but thinking about the larger community, there's a couple things that are challenges. One, if you're going after corporate dollars, so Coke, Pepsi, Cisco, like the big large entities, they have their own processes and programs, and they can be challenging to work with. Little guys like us, we tend to be much quicker because we're way more nimble, but we're also like cats. You try to get a half dozen or a dozen tiny small food businesses all heading in the same direction is super challenging because we're all just trying to exist. And that can mean a lot of different things at a given time. And so one of the things I've been listening for as I've been learning, taking in all this information from the Food Commission is what are the things that we can do to engage in small processes that are low effort. And it's not that we're lazy, but by the end of the week, when we tear down at the end of the Red River Market, that typically is the end of an 80 to 90 hour week for us. And so if you think of it in context of just the volume of work that most of us are trying to do, setting aside a couple hours is actually a pretty big ask, especially during the busy seasons. We get local peppers, so like we make all of our hot sauce products in a 6 to 8 week time window, which means, and we're taking in well over a ton of peppers now at this point. So like if you try to talk to me between basically the first week of August and about mid-October, I'm almost impossible to get a hold of because it's harvest. And again, didn't want to be a farmer. Now I'm doing farming things, or at least farming adjacent things. The other thing is like we're all part of just existing is we have to keep an eye on what the market's doing. Tastes change, emphasis change. So it's a lot of the split focus. And so really like when it comes for me and my businesses and the businesses I have the tightest relationships with, when it comes to things like pouring into the food system to provide assistance, it really boils down to two things. It's ease of engagement. And ultimately, it's always nice if there's the option for us to use it to amplify our marketing. Like we don't match SNAP dollars. We don't, or when we do those adjustments, SNAP dollars, we'll never advertise that because that's between us and the SNAP beneficiary. However, you know, we would want to be able to talk about, like, you know, we've turned over X number of cases of sauce into the food bank system. Is a very good story to tell. It provides engagement and it helps, you know, forward our businesses along. So when you're thinking about engaging businesses, it really kind of comes down to those two things: is how much, you know, like, where do we need to be? How much do we need to be? Do we need to pay? Do we need to have employees there? Which means, you know, that's loaded cost for us. And so like and that's really kind of outlays the challenge of how to get businesses really engaged. I've watched at the market where produce vendors turn over food for the food system at the end of the market. And that works because somebody goes through and collects it all to give it to put into the food system. If it came down to having each of those vendors come and drop off, you wouldn't get nearly as much because everybody's in the same boat. We all just got done. Like, it's we can finally rest. And so the idea of going someplace and unloading again, just, we're human. The other challenge that for the commission in particular that I wanted to highlight is I personally, for my flannel fizz business, we have to be very selective about where we go. The Park District engaged me to make them a custom soda. We invested a tremendous amount of time and energy and money into that. Park District has an exclusive contract with Pepsi. So I cannot sell any of my flannel fizz products on any property managed by the Park District at all. And that's my case of my problem. But here's the problem: we're a community of small food businesses. So I get upset. I tell people because I'm upset, and then it creates a chilling effect that goes over. So as a food commission, something to maybe consider would be what existing contracts exist in place that would prevent maybe a local provider from engaging. And like, my business plan accommodates for my personal circumstance, but it is something that I can address directly, just to be very aware of. And then the last thing is like, I have a lot of hope for the future. Every food business I know that I've worked with personally wants people to be fed. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean with their products. If they have a way to engage, if they have a way to contribute, they want to help. And so we all get excited. You know, I think the probably the biggest one last year was the produce being collected at the Red River Market. Like we all support that, and we all tend to shop at the farmers that are the most generous with that. And so for the long view, I think especially for local businesses, I think there's a lot of reason to be hopeful as people learn about how hunger really is a Fargo issue. It is a Morehead issue, and ultimately we all want to see our communities be better and to thrive. And because we're part of that, and we're deeply, deeply invested. Like I'll never be able to leave Fargo. I have two businesses based here, and you know, I'm here for life. And so, and I'm not the only one that feels like that. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve on this commission, and that's a little bit about me. And if there's ever any questions surrounding any of these things, I'm more than happy to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Next on the agenda is item 4, Update on letter of support for multicultural urban food and ecology initiative. As you may recall at our last meeting, we had a request to sign a letter of support for grant application to Minnesota Urban Agricultural Grant Program. Noel is going to take a minute to talk about the steering committee work with that after our meeting last January. Noel.
Thank you, Chair Osnes, and thank you, Jeremiah. That was really inspiring to hear from you this morning, so much appreciated. I'll keep this short. So as you may remember, we received a request for a letter of support for a grant. We were able to act quickly, thanks especially to Adam Altenberg. He worked really hard to get this letter pulled together, and thank you, Chair Osnes, for getting it signed. And so we just wanted to share back the letter with everyone. I did speak with this group yesterday, and they did not receive this particular grant, but they've been applying for a lot of other funding with some success, and we're hoping that we could hear an update from them at our next meeting in May about their great work. But what I wanted to mention today is that it was really exciting. This was our first letter of support officially coming from the Food Commission. And it caught us a little bit by surprise. So the steering committee is looking into how we could encourage other groups to submit letters of support and what kind of process we would like to have for that moving forward. So what we've discussed is letting the public know that we can sign letters of support, offering a template, building off of what Adam pulled together, and then letting people know that if they would like a letter of support from us, that we need a couple weeks in advance, and that would be reviewed by the steering committee before it's presented to the Food Commission for approval. So that's what we're thinking. If anyone in maybe your other commissions and boards that you're on, if you have experience in working through a letter of support kind of process, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me directly. Otherwise, if anyone has thoughts around that, we can hear them now before we move on. Oh, and the letter is attachment 2 in your packet.
I'll just chime in and say, I think that's a great idea, because even as one of the ones that brought it forward last time, I wasn't sure, if you remember, some of my questions were along those lines, because I wasn't sure if it's something that we do or what the process was. So I think having a process spelled out will help us, those of us here, and then we can share that information in the community too. So I think that's a great way to go.
There's a little box.
One of the questions, Noelle, that was raised when we were going through that letter process, because I was a little bit involved in that as well, is who signs the letter, and then we landed on the chair. Is that kind of what your steering committee is thinking is the way to go?
Yes, and that was Adam. Is there anything, because you're MetroCog, Adam representing MetroCog is more familiar with how this works. So that was where we landed. Oh, and then I also, so we, the chair of the Food Commission signs, and then the steering committee member most directly involved with the project would also sign. And in that case, that was me. Do you have anything to add around that, Adam? No.
No, that, like you said, for most of our contracts or projects, we'll usually have our policy board chair decide, and then whichever staff member or our executive director, who's ever most involved, will co-sign.
Okay. Thank you, Noel. Next is item 5, public engagement strategies from John Hopkins Center for a livable future. Michelle is going to talk briefly about some conversations she's had regarding that. Michelle?
Good morning. Hi, thank you. So to kind of, go along with Noel's, comments about individuals, organizations coming to the Food Commission, the steering committee has been having conversations around public input and public comment, specifically with the Food Commission meetings and ways to really increase that engagement. As we know that hearing from community members has many benefits. So some benefits of public input, I just kind of wanted to recap. So they include, but are definitely not limited to, gaining a better understanding of the community's needs and aspirations, hearing diverse perspectives that empower decision-making, increased transparency through community engagement, a smoothly run initiative as a result of community engagement, and creating a greater sense of community ownership. So definitely benefits to having that public input. So knowing the benefit of community engagement and knowing this is an area of improvement for the food partners, a few members of the steering committee participated in what's called a curbside consult with Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future at the end of February. So my hope this morning is to briefly summarize that consultation and provide some engagement strategies that were discussed. And then circle back to the commissioners for input on these strategies and really have a conversation if any of those stood out. And if so, what some good next steps may be with those strategies for the commission. And so definitely those who were involved in that curbside consult, feel free to chime in if I missed anything from that conversation. So some strategies that came to light during that conversation with that curbside consult would be providing education and guidance on what is meant to, or what it means to actually provide public input. Specifically, maybe create videos or educational materials on how to specifically provide input in a meeting such as this. We could even engage elected officials in doing a Facebook Live video on public comment, why they appreciate public comment, things like that. Another strategy was to encourage written comment before or even during the meeting, as it could be less anxiety provoking. They can submit anytime prior to the Food Commission meetings. There is an online input form through the Food Partners page at FargoCast Public Health that we can promote and have people provide input that way. We could also look to capitalize on First Fridays and the participation there and really pose a specific question at those First Fridays events to get people thinking about the upcoming Food Commission meeting, to engage them a little bit, to have them provide some input. We could also highlight the utilization and implementation of the policy briefs. As I'm sure many of you are aware, there are over 20 policy briefs that are available, and they're wonderful. And so if we can find citizens who have been able to utilize those, maybe have them highlight that to increase some engagement. We could provide opportunities for small group discussions, increase opportunities for being in the community in terms of, smaller events, ongoing meetings. I know that there was a pollinator walk in the fall that was wonderful. We could do boulevard garden tours, ideas such as that. And then another idea that came to light was hosting a candidate forum for, city council members, commissioners, or individuals who are up for re-election, as that is a really good way to increase engagement. So I know that was a lot of information, a lot of strategies. We can digest that for a minute, but I would like to open it up to the group to see if there were any of those strategies that stood out, or if any additional ideas came to mind, to maybe just have a brief conversation about what could potentially be done as a group to increase that public input.
I'll be happy to chime in, because this is something that I is really near and dear to me. And I think I like all the suggestions. And I think if you are looking for ways that are sort of meeting people where they're at and in a less formal environment, I think those tend to be more successful. So you think about things like the pollinator walk, and we met outside in a park, and it wasn't, at a more formal location with an agenda, and people didn't have to come up to a podium and things like that. I think looking for those types of opportunities seem to work really well. I also think if you were to also focus on some groups in particular that, that may have issues that are relevant, like folks with food insecurity or folks in our New American community. And again, set up intentional meetings to have conversations. That might be one way, instead of us asking them to come to us, that we go to them and set up some things in an environment that people feel comfortable, that where we could have those conversations. But I would be happy to do anything I can to help with any of this, because I think it's really valuable. If any of you have looked at Dave Meslin, he's somebody who does a lot of work in this area and looking at how to increase community engagement. There's even just some good YouTube videos about it, about how we can, even using it when we print material, using less jargon, like sending out announcements that aren't really text heavy, like even things like that, so that people aren't just like look at it and their eyes glaze over. But yeah, I think there's lots of things that we could do. Thanks.
Any other questions for Michelle? Thank you, Michelle. Next on agenda is item 6, Clay County Comprehensive Plan Update. Erica Frank will take a few minutes to talk about how the country's comprehensive plan is going along. So Erica, we hand over to you.
Hi, everyone. Are you all seeing the presentation? Okay. So I'm Erica Frank. I'm the Planning and Zoning Technician here in Clay County. And today I'm going to touch base with you on the draft 2045 Clay County Comprehensive and Transportation Plan overview in relation to the food-related policy. So just a little. What is a comprehensive plan? So a comprehensive plan provides a shared vision and policy framework that guides public and private decision-making. It really takes a long-range look at various topics that impact the county's character, their preservation and growth, and the fiscal condition of the county. Our current update being done by MetroCog began in January 2021, with our last comprehensive plan was completed back in 2002. And we need comprehensive plans because it's a tool for growth and development in the county and an opportunity to plan together to shape the community's future. It provides justification for zoning and other land development decisions, as well as assists when applying for certain state grants. So we had a series of community engagement events. We did some surveys and also one-on-one focus groups. And we gathered a lot of important information on the strengths and opportunities in the county. So the first was the strengths and opportunities of the agriculture and food systems in our county. There was multiple comments made regarding the great farmland of the county and how it's really the backbone of our community. There was opportunity to preserve it from soil erosion and incorporate sustainable practices, as well as a great opportunity to work to connect locally grown and produced food to locals, as well as increasing the farm to table opportunities. In the transportation section, there was multiple comments made about access opportunities in our rural areas, a need for public transportation options, as well as increasing the active transportation opportunities through trails and shared use path networks. And our rural communities don't always have retail food stores, making access to food options limited to those that have transportation means. So by supporting alternative forms of transportation, residents that do not have the traditional automobile are then now able to live in these rural settings. There's many other areas that they touch base on, but also natural resources was one that there was multiple comments made about the water quantity and quality of our aquifers in the county, and that we really need to make sure to continue to balance our use and protect it for the future to come. We also asked townships and cities for their feedback on the plan, and the townships really wanted to reiterate that we will always be an egg-based community, where the cities were really interested in looking at how the county could support people getting access to locally produced foods and encouraging citizens to produce their own food. We reached out to some state agencies for responses, and they really saw opportunities to work on soil erosion and sediment control on ag lands, as well as monitoring our municipal water sources to really ensure resilience during drought and declining aquifer levels. We touched base with some personnel meetings with Clay County staff, and they really looked at transportation impacts many aspects of the citizens' lives here in Clay County, from access to their food, to their healthcare needs, and childcare. So now that we've reviewed all the opportunities and strengths of our county, and let's get into the draft plan. So there's really 7 different components of the plan, and we're really going to touch base on parts of the plan that directly impact food-oriented policy. Let's look at first at the community profile. So it's projected that over the next 25 years, there's going to be greater than 25,000 residents moving to the county or in the county. And then as the county grows, it's expected that virtually every city and township will see a population increase in the next 25 years. With the estimated population comes this increase in housing units, and it's estimated that an additional 10,505 housing units are going to be needed in the next 25 years. Agricultural land accounts for nearly 80.4% of the land area in the county, with the number of farms has been decreasing since 2007, while the average acreage per farm has been going up. And according to the 2017 Ag Census, only 4% of farmers directly sell to consumers. In the state of Minnesota, there are 700 certified organic farms. 12 of them are in Clay County. An additional 4 farms were shown as transitioning to organic. So 16 total farms are organic in the state in Clay County. In our transportation and land use section, MetroCog analyzed several corridors across Clay County, including existing and planned bicycle and pedestrian facilities. They also included emerging technologies that could possibly increase access to transit systems in our rural areas. They also dived into, took an in-depth look at our current land use in Clay County, and you can see in light yellow on the right and in some of the gray areas, all of that 80.4% of our ag-based land use. And they outlined our guiding principles for our land use: balance, collaboration, fostering economic resilience, and connection with our ag base. There's really 3 future growth alternatives, with alternative 2 being the most favored by Clay County and its residents, that we really want to balance the growth and land use patterns. Their vision is guided by issues and opportunities that were discovered through the community engagement event. And this, when the plan is adopted, this vision statement would then be adopted by the Board of Commissioners and kind of outlines our future idea for the county. There are 8 goals and objectives highlighted. I'll just touch base on the ones that relate to food policy, as there are quite a few. So the community goals within community and resilience is really promote personal and community health for all residents, encourage practices and activities that achieve healthy food access for all of our residents. In the land use and agricultural section, really want to recognize and continue to protect the agricultural character of Clay County, supporting ag operations in their nuisance complaints through right to farm provisions, protecting prime ag land from development, and preserving large tracts of farmland while allowing farmland owners to still benefit from developments through TDRs or concentrated residential developments. In land use residential section, we really want to provide opportunities for quality rural residential development in Clay County by encouraging development of ag and conservation subdivisions that cluster the residential development on smaller lots while providing shared open spaces. And recognizing the diversity of living and working arrangements in our unincorporated areas of Clay County by allowing home occupations that are in harmony with the character of the county. And also recognizing that there's multi-generational and temporary ag workers that are living arrangements by allowing accessory dwelling units on properties that can adequately provide. In our transportation system section, I really want to maintain and operate accessible, safe, and efficient transportation systems for the movement of people and goods through Clay County by maintaining and operating a transportation system that enhances the economic development objectives of the county and provides a good balance of access and mobility, as well as integrating multimodal considerations into projects in order to provide a transportation system that accommodates all types of transportation. In our transportation, bicycle, and pedestrian connections, increase biking and walking through rural portions of Clay County, consider on-street facilities such as wider shoulders, and continue to ensure safety and recreation of existing and future bicyclists and pedestrians across Clay County, as well as connecting future bike and ped infrastructure to other existing infrastructure, and continue to collaborate with our partners and local and state agencies as we work to find a design for the Heartland Trail, and provide education on how walking and biking infrastructure can also enhance other ag and farm operations in the county. In our transportation transit section, we really want to increase opportunities for rural transit in Clay County, educating the residents about existing opportunities and resources that are available, increasing our participation in building better partnerships with existing organizations, and continuing to monitor and evolve new technologies and other methods that may make rural transit services more efficient and accessible to the residents. In our agricultural section, we want to continue to support the long-term protection of the county's strong and diverse ag economy while maintaining an environment that supports ag at all scales throughout the county, recognizing and supporting the ag character of the county in all of our planning efforts, and ensuring that all new development is compatible with the character and quality of the county's ag areas, while promoting regenerative practices such as cover crops, reduced tillage, and livestock incorporation in our highly erodible soil areas. And related goals with environmental health, we really want to continue to protect our groundwater resource in Clay County to ensure safe and clean drinking water, as well as adequate supply for people and ag during times of drought. Continue to implement those land use controls that guide development over our aquifers, recognizing the impact soil water quality makes on groundwater resources, recognizing our groundwater goals and implementation actions of our watershed plans, as well as coordinating with municipalities and entities with their wellhead protection plans. And finally, our public open space goals, maintaining and enhancing our county lands that were acquired through the FEMA hazard grant funding to serve the community in the greater region. We want to continue to encourage recreational uses of these lands, prioritizing the establishment of native plants, and coordinating with our local and state entities on promoting the outdoor recreation of the public lands and water trails in Clay County. So what are the next steps? Working to get the plan adopted. Our Planning Commission is holding their public hearing on March 15th from 7 to 7:30, and all Clay County residents are welcome and encouraged to attend. And then our Board of Commissioners will hold the final public hearing and hopefully adopt late March, early April is the plan. So do you have any final thoughts, questions? You can also check out the plan at MetroCog's website, and it's linked below. I'm sure we can send out the PowerPoint to anybody that wants it.
Any questions for Erica? Thank you, Erica. Next on our agenda is item 7, AARP funding opportunities. Adam will give a little information on that and how communities can apply.
Thank you, Chair. One item I wanted to highlight today is AARP's Community Challenge Grant Program, which are attachments 3A and 3B in your packet. This program provides small grants to fund quick action projects that help communities become more livable for people of all ages. In the past 5 years, this program has awarded $9.3 million to over 800 different grant applications to both municipal jurisdictions and nonprofit organizations. This in turn is translated into over 8,300 physical improvements and 1,700 different resources and other community programs. This year, applications will be accepted for projects that improve public spaces, housing, transportation, and civic engagement. And in the past, taking a look at some past projects, these have included raised garden beds, community gardens, pollinator and rain gardens, and community events which promote active and healthy living. From what I understand, these grants do not require any sort of local match. However, approximately 45% of grantees have stated that these community challenge grants have helped them to leverage additional public or private funds. Average grant amount is approximately $11,500, though grants of up to $50,000 have been awarded for different projects. Due date for grant applications is Tuesday, March 22nd, which is about 2 weeks from now. But if there are any commission members or others in the meeting today that maybe have thought about or discussed these types of projects in their communities, MetroCog can help with these types of applications. So do feel free to reach out to me if you think you might have a project that would be good for this type of grant funding. With that, I'll open it up if there's anyone that has any questions about this.
Any questions for Adam?
Yes,
one thing that came to mind, but it's not something that that I'm directly involved in, but I wondered with in the future with the Silver Linings building, if, for folks that are seniors that are transitioning out of homelessness, that if there was an opportunity, if anybody has spoken with them about this, looking for some, using this as a way of like putting in a community garden there or other things that might help with food insecurity issues.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what was the name of that grant program again, Adam?
It's the AARP Community Challenge. And there's a website with both the resources that were in the packet as well as it has some case studies and other additional information.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Any other questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam. The next on our agenda is item 8, plan ahead for pollinators. Jeff and John have a brief presentation about that. Jeff and John, go ahead.
All right, I'll go first here. So my name is Jeffrey Miller. I'm with the Cass County Soil Conservation District here in Fargo. And I guess it's probably no secret to anybody that pollinators are declining over most of the range. Urban areas have a real potential to improve the habitat of pollinators. And the way that we are helping with that is we have cost share programs for implementing pollinator gardens, butterfly gardens, kind of whatever you want to call it, on either publicly owned or privately owned properties in Fargo. The way that we do that is we cost share 75% of the plants, mulch, materials, basically everything but land acquisition or labor. And John will talk here in a minute, but we're fortunate to have the United Prairie Foundation's native plant greenhouse in Enderlin. So all the plants that we get are local ecotype plants grown from plant seeds from around the area. There's a huge variety of plants that can be installed. And the Soil Conservation District basically does everything but plant them. So we can help you plan out your area, give you all kinds of advice, deliver the plants. But it's very telling when we have a lot of these small plantings installed and they're full of butterflies, bees, all different pollinators. And that kind of tells us that these insects really don't have a lot of places to be when they flock to small pollinators. So it's very important to get pollinating plants on the landscape, because a lot of our annuals that we plant are non-native. They don't provide anything for pollinators, but these native plants, both beautiful, they look really nice. And then another big advantage of the native plants is that they've evolved here. So they require much less work than non-native plants that require, maybe protecting in the winter, things like that. Once they're installed, they're very low maintenance. And I guess just as an aside on the last one, Adam had mentioned community gardens. We also have a community garden grant program where we can grant up to $500, 60% of a community garden's needs. Basically, the only thing that we don't cover for that is plants, labor, land, but equipment, mulch, any of that kind of stuff, infrastructure, we can help with grants that way too. And if you have any other questions or any of the programs that we offer, you can simply go to our website at casscd.org. And I guess with that, I'll probably turn it over to John.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm John with the United Prairie Foundation, and we started our greenhouse to be able to have the resources we needed to do projects. I wanted to go on a little bit with ways to start growing, but I'm not too sure if or how much I want to engage you all, how many people are in attendance that are wanting to grow. But a lot of the methods that we utilize you can start your vegetables, a lot of different things besides the prairie plants. And myself grow a lot of things besides the prairie plants under lights. So one of the things is starting out is having resources to get these products to grow. LED lights are a phenomenal way to start growing. They keep getting better and better and better. And they're super inexpensive draws on electricity. A typical grow system rack will have 4 LED lights. It is 96 watts. I mean, that's less than what an old incandescent light was. And I just want to make sure people out there are hearing what I'm saying. That I have my Zoom going correctly. I've been just sitting here listening to everyone. Can you just confirm that I'm communicating with you all?
Yep, we hear you
Yep,
loud
you're
and
good.
clear.
All right. So Noelle, right there, she gets, I keep her updated on some things like my mental health sanctuary, which gives me a lot of peace of mind because I can walk into this room, my office room that I'm using 4 LED lights on, and I'm harvesting beans, peas, tomatoes are starting to ripen. A couple prairie plants I've started in there. The bonsai is now blooming, which somehow makes me think that I missed spring somehow. It's such a short period anyhow, but one of the keys on growing under lights or starting indoors is other things growing besides what you're trying to do. And adding hydrogen peroxide to your water will stop all that associated algae, funguses growing. And that's a big key in doing it. Is, start now growing real quick here, starting now with some inexpensive LED lights, strip lights. The greenhouse mega store is a great resource for the trays, the pots and stuff that you would use if you can't find them locally. Their shipping is very inexpensive. Any orders over $49 are free shipping right to your door. And the percentages, like I tell Elizabeth and these people that are working with us that are employed by us watering, is if you're like a quart bottle, we poke some holes in the top of a Powerade or Gatorade bottle, and then in there you just give it a good squirt. I mean, it's really unregulated. I don't think you can use too much. If we have a 2-gallon watering can, you squirt for about 10 seconds into the top of it with a hydrogen peroxide bottle, but then you just eliminate all that unwanted growth in there. It doesn't harm your seedlings one bit. And that's a big key to it all, especially growing like I started my mental health garden in a sunny window, that when I started it in late December, early January, there's not enough light coming through those windows to grow those plants, but you add a little bit of light with the LEDs and it will grow them. And so that's a big key to it all is the lighting and the hydrogen peroxide. And we go in more in depth in the ways of starting the plants is covering them with some saran wrap so it doesn't dry out. Get them growing. They'll be all right in there. And that's where having the hydrogen peroxide, you won't. If you didn't have the hydrogen peroxide, your underneath that would just be solid green growth. But when you put the hydrogen peroxide in, the only thing that's going to grow is your plants. And so we do that with our tomatoes, cucumbers, everything. It won't be long and we'll have cucumbers in the window growing up the trellis in my window. But I think that going forward is we should try to incorporate all this. Noelle does a great job with food in her causeway. What a great thing, Prairie and food. You can go pick. You were wanting us to pick on the pollinator walk some more food, but I believe in all that and I support it in any way possible. And I think we should just put together some type of workshop that we can target this type of stuff that people are really interested in growing, and not like spend my time now with your commission, which I'm happy to do, but it would be nice to, like the pollinator walk, start gathering people that are interested, but to try to engage them in both growing some food at their home. I mean, I've done the greens, and my salads are now grown out of my office, and it's really just people get engaged because those things grow so fast. So it keeps them engaged, and then the room is a little more humid and green, and it just adds to your life having things growing. So I'm sort of gonna end it on that, but I really appreciate y'all inviting me to this, and like Jeff mentioned, he's a great resource and he reaches out to us. So I would defer things to him a lot, because on the North Dakota side, I mean, he's just spot on with what he does, and we appreciate everything through the Cass Clay area.
Any questions for Jeffrey and John?
I do. John, I want a mental health garden too. I think I need to come visit you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, yeah,
And I have a question. Yeah, I have a question about your LED lights. Are they like growing lights specifically, or are you just using some kind of standard LED?
No, they're not really all created equal. The strip LEDs, we get them off Amazon. I buy them at 12 for $99. But there's an app and that we use that measures par light, and the par light is what's needed. And like last year, 3 years ago, we were under all fluorescent lights, and you have to, and the fluorescent bulbs last 1 year, and then you got to trash them if you're growing with them. And we use a full spectrum 6500K light. And again, they're getting, every year they're getting better. I think really most of the strip LEDs would work, but if anyone wanted to reach out to me, I could send them a link to the ones that we're using. And we've been able to cut down from 5 20-watt bulbs on one strip, which grows 4 flats, to 4 of them at 96 watts. So we actually lost 4 watts in one bulb in total, but they don't lose their oomph year to year. So if you make a little investment in what you're doing in your growing system, you can keep doing that. And we keep growing. We keep doing our seedling startings all the way, even when we could have them in our greenhouses. You can control the temperatures, the lighting, and you grow a better seedling through those lights than you would through even in our greenhouse conditions. Your temperature's more consistent. It grows a better seedling on it. The other thing is, I would say, would be to have a fan just going back and forth with your timer. As soon as the lights kick on, start blowing a little bit of air around them. But from the gentleman that you had starting out buying the peppers, you almost could make a little bit of money in your backyard growing some peppers. You'd be starting them soon. But it's just that shows you the untapped world of food out there. Like the previous one was, almost all the ag land is commercial being sold. None of it's really going to the people, and small gardens can create viable means of supplying you with food. Even in my office, I've had meals just growing off a trellis in my sunny window. So things keep progressing better. The LEDs allow you to grow. In the past, you could never do that. You could never do that with fluorescents. You have to be within an inch of the light to get enough growable light. So these are just things that keep getting better and better, and they're inexpensive. They're $99 for 12. So any questions, or anyone that wants any information on that, they can contact me. I saw that the email was shared, and don't hesitate, just reach out. I'll reply to you and answer any questions you might have.
Any other questions for Jeffrey and John at this time?
Commissioner Kaylee, Commissioner White, I see you had some comments in the chat. Did you have any additional questions here?
Noel responded to my question. So unless anybody has anything to add for just Clay County, if there's funding, but it doesn't sound like we have that right now.
So the Clay County SWCD they are starting a program. So I'd reach out to Amanda Lewis there. She would be able to help with that.
It's less a question than more of a comment. Like my primary habanero grower and super hot growers, they have everything under LEDs right now because I think our super hot seed to fruiting is typically 180 to 200 days. So all of that's well underway already.
Right, but yeah, right, that's perfect like that. The LEDs are game changers for starting plants that need those longer growing days to produce the quality fruits and plants even for that matter. Yeah, good stuff.
I have a question, John. So if I am just starting out and wanting to dabble in some pollinator plantings, are there any species or varieties that you would recommend that are like idiot proof or brown thumb proof to get started with?
I mean, it would be like black-eyed Susans, the bergamot, hyssop. The one that you should try growing is Metaleatris, and because the monarchs will just go for it when they're starting to migrate, and late once they start blooming, they bloom for a long time. They're pretty durable plants. And swamp milkweed, you hear the milkweed and people fear it, and but it's the swamp milkweed variety will grow in a garden setting. It does not spread. It's just a fibrous root individual plant. And it blooms beautiful red flowers, and we call it the Northern Plains greatest garden plant ever, swamp milkweed. And because it's a dependable plant. You throw the seeds down and they'll grow. So that would be the the basics of getting something going that would add color for a large period of the summer, bloom, and have great pollinators visiting them. Jeff can comment. We did a bunch of swamp milkweed around his shop at West Fargo, and the first year they were full of monarch caterpillars, and you could always see stuff buzzing around them. It's just a great plant, swamp milkweed.
Yeah, and the benefit of growing it from the plugs rather than seed is that first year they bloom and they grow, and it's almost an instant prairie. So yeah, and they're easy to plant. They work great.
Okay, I'll jump in with my question then. I was wondering about cold stratification because so many prairie plants seem to require that. And I know, you have plugs that people can get too, but if people are wanting to start from seed, what is your tried and true process there?
Well, we utilize two different ways on that. Would be to take a plastic baggie with some paper towels in it, if they're larger seeds, and then put them in there and moisten the paper towel and put them in the refrigerator. Usually 30 days will break the germination code. But Prairie Moon Nursery, we really advocate for locally sourced prairie plants, and you get to a lot of them. That's what we need in this area, more growers of our locally sourced prairie plants. But if you Google like blue lobelia germination codes, you'll come up with a few of the nurseries. We don't offer it on our website, a list of them all. But you can go to that. And then another way is taking a little bit of vermiculite and moistening it and putting your seeds in that, or some really fine sand, and then keeping it in that, and then sprinkling them on top of your potting mix, and then cover that with some cellophane to keep the moisture in until they bloom and start growing. And that'll keep them moist, because if you dry out the top of them when you're starting to germinate them, these little seedlings, if they've even just sprouted and you can't see them, they'll perish because of the lack of moisture. So that little bit of cellophane over top, and if it's a bigger flat, you can just lay it right on the soil, because the plant's germinating will start pushing up on the cellophane. So that's a really big key to that, is the I don't know if you guys see me, but I can give you a quick look at it. And this is our community center, which is our headquarters in Sheldon. But I don't know if you can see, but we start germinating and growing. And then here's one with the cellophane on it that we're still germinating golden Alexander in, which is another great plant. I mean, we just do that through, I mean, we do lots of lights that are like that. I don't know if you were able to see that, but that's the methodology that we use. And we're doing a pollinator workshop at the Fergus Falls Library this evening. If you wanted to come see some of this stuff live, 6:30 at the Fergus Falls Public Library. But they're a great community too, doing Prairie, just like the Cass Clay area is a really great area. So thank you for your question.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next on our agenda is our public comment opportunity. As a reminder, there's a comment form link that is sent out with the meeting agenda and packet. As of this morning, no online comments have been received. But is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak at this time? Go ahead. Okay. Next is item 10. Commission and Sharing Committee Roundtable. Does anyone have any comments on today's meeting or any other community updates to share?
I can, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of updates from Morehead. We're having, as probably some of you saw in the news, ongoing discussions about spraying in our parks. And I would say, I think we haven't really reached a consensus on when and where exactly we're going to make all of our changes. But I would say we have a consensus that we want to continue to look at limiting the spraying that we're doing, looking at changing more areas over to native plants, replacing some areas where there's turf with plants that are that don't require spraying. We're just sort of debating about the timeline and how quickly we can get there. I will say, if you followed the news, we did decide to make a couple of changes this year that I'll mention. One is that we will have a 50-foot buffer around playgrounds and pools in Morehead, but there will be spot spraying in those areas, but they won't be blanket spraying in those particular areas. And then the other change that we made that I wanted to highlight, because I think it's relevant to this group, we did get them to change, we did agree to change and have an area in MB Johnson Park that will be set aside for no spraying. And part of that is to avoid issues with drift in our new urban forest, that we didn't want that to to damage all the new trees that we have there. But one of the things that we discussed was that, that our urban orchard is meant to be not just a place where people can get food in the future, but also a great place for education. And obviously some of that won't happen for a little while because it's new, and we, but one of the things that we talked about is the potential for doing some educational things around things like foraging, because we do have people that use that as a way to help provide get access to healthy food. And it would be a place where if there was interest, and that's why I'm bringing it to this group, of having some workshops and bringing people up there, and they could use some of the space that we're setting aside to talk about foraging or other topics that might be beneficial, that would be a way of starting some of those educational things now rather than waiting until our bushes and trees are more mature. So I wanted to throw that out there, but I also will mention too, on a different topic, just that we also, Noelle has asked me if I could, in May, I'm going to talk about the Morehead Comprehensive Plan, and I wanted to mention 2 dates that are coming up. March 7th, the Morehead Planning Commission will be voting on the comprehensive plan. And on March 28th, it comes to council. And so all of this is online. You can read a draft of our plan. And I really encourage people to look at that and give feedback, come to the meetings. So if you haven't looked at the full draft, and you just have to either, you can Google Morehead Comprehensive Plan or Onward Morehead, but those are two great opportunities to again come and speak on our comprehensive plan as we're working on wrapping up that process. Thanks.
Anyone else have comments?
Hi, Chair Osnes. I have a comment. This is Mary Larson. I know it's still winter and we have a lot of snow on the ground, but I wanted to just update everyone on the Morehead Farmers Market. The Morehead Farmers Market will be held on Tuesdays from 3 to 6 p.m. starting on Tuesday, May 31st and going through September 27th. And it will be at the Yumcomps parking lot on the west end. And one of the things that is really exciting for us, in addition to accepting SNAP EBT at the Morehead Farmers Market, we have a double bucks through Market Bucks through Hunger Solutions of Minnesota. And we also now have Produce Bucks, which doubles in addition to the Market Bucks for specifically produce. So one could spend $20 of their SNAP EBT and receive $20 of Market Bucks and $20 of Produce Bucks. So it's really exciting. And I just wanted to put that out there, plant that seed, and we'll be hopefully advertising more through the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Chair Osnes, a quick question. Commissioner White, you gave us a date of March 7th for something, and March 7th has passed. Can you restate that, please?
My apologies. Yes, I'm sorry. So it would be March 28th at OBA to council.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to commission action steps. Next first Friday is April 1st. Scheduled for at 7:01 eateries in Fargo. Please check out food on the North Facebook page or website for more information on that. Next commission meeting will be March 11th or May 11th, 2022. Everything is going to be virtual again. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
For a second.
Jeremiah seconding.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passed. Thank you for everyone and have a great day.